In this video, you're going to learn how to use Kustomize to make production-quality Kubernetes manifests. So what is Kustomize? Kustomize is a Kubernetes native tool for customizing Kubernetes manifest files that doesn't require any complex templating or additional tools. It uses plain old YAML and is natively built into the latest versions of kubectl. With a single kustomize.yaml file and using kubectl apply with the -k parameter, you can harness the power of Kustomize. Now, to fully understand Kustomize, you need to understand the three main reasons why Kustomize is so popular. First, it drastically reduces and simplifies your manifest files using common values and generators. Common values help keep things like labels, names, and annotations consistent, while generators help create and map config maps and secrets to your pods. Secondly, it allows you to easily override elements of your manifest files for each of your environments such as QA, Dev, and Production using a concept known as patching and overlays. Patching and overlays are really simple to implement. All you need is a separate directory for each of your environments and just have your custom values in a customized file within those directories. Finally, Kustomize is very easy to use, especially when compared to a tool like Helm. All you need to do is add a kustomize.yaml file in your root directory, and you can apply your customized configuration using kubectl apply. Since the overlay engine of Kustomize uses plain old YAML, your configurations end up being much simpler than if you were using a templating engine like Helm. Let's look at an example to better understand the concepts of customization. Here I have a Kustomize application. In the root directory of my Kustomize application, I have two folders, the base folder and the overlays folder. The overlays folder contains environment-specific configuration, and the base folder contains my manifest files and an additional file, customization.yaml. In the customization.yaml file, you specify which manifest files should be included in the customization. You then specify common parameters that you want to be consistent, such as labels, annotations, and names. Here you can see that all my objects will get the label My Custom App, get the annotation of My Custom Annotations, and will start with the name Custom and end with v1. Since these are defined in my customization file, my manifest files become smaller, and I know the values between all my manifests will be consistent. Now at the bottom of the customization file, I make use of what's known as a generator, which automatically creates and attaches a config map to the pod. The generator removes the need for having a separate manifest file for your config map. You can also use generators for things like secrets. This will make a lot more sense when we get to the practical portion of this video, but before we do that, let's have a look at how we can implement overlays and patches. Overlays are Kustomize's way of overriding values in your base manifest files with environment-specific values, and this is done with a simple directory structure. Let's say you have multiple environments like Dev, QA, and Prod. You'll want to use overlays to patch your environment-specific values. Under the Overlays folder, a directory should be created for each environment. Under the Environment folder, a customization file should be created. This customization file will inherit the base folder, and you can patch or add any custom values you want to override. In this example, I am overriding the namespace, config map, and replica count. I know this may seem a little complicated, but it should make sense when we get to the practical section of this video, so make sure to stick around for that. Once you have a customization configuration in place, you can then apply your customized configuration using kubectl apply command and specifying the -k flag to indicate that this is a customized application. If you want to view the raw YAML that Kustomize is generating before applying it, you can run the kubectl customize command, which will output the Kubernetes objects that kubectl will apply. So that's it for the theory you need to know about Kustomize, but like any tool, you need to see it in action to really understand how it works. So join me now as I take you through a complete walkthrough of Kustomize. Alright, so getting started, if you want to follow along with this tutorial, you can clone from my repository these files, and if you want to just watch and see how I customize this application, that's fine as well. Basically, these are just Kubernetes manifest files. You can see we have a deployment, a service, and a configuration map, and we're going to take these and then we're going to customize them. So before you begin with Kustomize, you want to make sure you have access to Kustomize functionality. Now there's two ways, as I mentioned. You can either download the separate binary for Kustomize, or you can use the built-in integration with kubectl. Now the commands are a bit different between these two, and my recommendation is just to use kubectl, and as long as you have version 1.21 or above, you should have Kustomize functionality. And you should be able to verify your version with just a kubectl version. And then if you just go kubectl Kustomize, you can see that it gives me some output here. So we can see that the command is working. And basically this is just an error saying it can't find this Kustomize file. So that's going to be one of the first things we do is create the Kustomize file. And then we're going to update the rest of our application to use Kustomize. So I'm going to hop into VS Code as this will be easier to visualize everything. So in VS Code here, I'm just going to create a new file, and this will be our customization.yaml. So the first thing I'm going to do with my customization YAML file is I'm going to specify some resources, and these resources are going to be my actual manifest files that I want the customization on. So I'm going to go resources, and then I'll go deployment.yaml. And I'll also specify the service.yaml. So one thing with Kustomize is you can have a config map generator. So I'm not going to inherit this config map.yaml because we're going to end up deleting this file, and we're just going to use the config map generator to generate the configurations. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say common labels. And I believe my application here has a pretty simple label. So this is the label right here. So I'm just going to take this and paste it in here. And now all my resources will get this label. So what I can do here is really simplify all my manifest files by taking out the label. So I'm just going to take out the labels here. And we can get rid of this selector as well. And that should be good for this portion. Let's go ahead and head into our service.yaml file and get rid of the labels here, and we can get rid of the selector as well. So you can see right here that basically what Kustomize is allowing us to do is make our individual manifest files a lot simpler. We've only really specified one thing here, which is the common labels, and already our manifest files are quite a bit smaller. So now that we've set our Kustomize to specify the labels and we've taken the labels out of our individual manifests, let's go ahead and run the Kustomize command to show us what our configuration looks like. So hopping back into the shell, all I need to do is say kubectl Kustomize and then specify the location of my Kustomize file. So I'm just going to put a dot here which specifies the current working directory, and you can see now that it found that kustomize.yaml file, it's giving me some output here. So let's go ahead and scroll up. So you can see it has the service and the deployment, but no configuration map yet, and that's because we haven't used the config map generator, but we'll get to that next. What I want to show here is that the labels came over. And it came over for the deployment, and it came over for the service as well. And we could easily make changes to this in our kustomize.yaml file, and then just change the label to whatever we want. So we could go custom web app, and then if we rerun that command, you can see that it's updated it on all our resources. So what Kustomize is actually doing here is it's just reading your kustomize.yaml file and your manifest, and it's generating you a new configuration. Now you could output this to a file, or you could directly apply this to your Kubernetes cluster, which we'll get into shortly, but let's go ahead and have a look at what else we can customize. So another popular one, I'm just going to copy and paste in here, is annotations. So if you use annotations in your manifest files, you can just use common annotations, and then all your resources will get this annotation. Another one that I like is name prefix and name suffix. So if we go name prefix and give it a value, and then name suffix and give it a value, basically all our resources will start with this and end with this. So let's go ahead and rerun our kustomize command and see the configuration that it gives us. So go back in here, rerun it. And now you can see that we have an annotation there. And we also updated the name, which is right here. So you can see it's prefixed with custom, and then it does version 1 at the end, and then up here as well. So how cool is that? We're able to customize our application with just a few lines of YAML and running our customize command. Now, if we want to actually apply this to our Kubernetes cluster, like I mentioned, you could output this to a file and then apply it using kubectl, or you could just use the kubectl apply-k parameter. So I'm going to do that. So I'll just go kubectl apply -k for customize, and then I'll say current working directory. So it should find the customize file and apply this configuration that it just gave to us. And you can see that the service was created and the deployment was created. And if we check that by just doing kubectl get all, we can see that we have the deployment and the service created, and it's named based on the name that we gave it in the customize YAML file. Now, this application does have a configuration map, so let's go ahead and have a look at how we can apply that configuration map. So we'll go back into our customization, and what we're going to use here is a config map generator. And there's two things that I want to specify here. I want to specify the name. So I'll just go my custom -map. And then I want to use environment variables here, since my application takes in environment variables. And I'm going to give it an environment variable file. So I'm just going to go config.properties. Now, having a look at this config map, I'm just going to convert this into a properties file. So I don't need any of this YAML. I'll just take this all out. And instead of being colons here, I'm going to put equal. And this should work here. And if we just rename this to config.properties and make sure we have the equals right here. Whoop. So this should be enough. Let's go ahead and run our customize, and let's not apply it yet. Let's just see the output and make sure that everything looks okay. So we'll do that. We see the deployment, we see the service, and we see the configuration map there. And it looks a bit strange. I don't think I need the quotations here, so let me take that out. And then rerun this. Scroll up. That looks a lot better. Let's go ahead and apply. You can see the config map is created and the service and deployment are unchanged. Let's now go ahead and quickly test our application. So I'm using Minikube, so the best way to do that is to get the service name and then just use the Minikube service command. So I'll just go kubectl get services, and it's this one here. And I'll open a new window and I'll just go Minikube service and paste in that name, and it's going to give me a URL here, and it's not loading, so let's go ahead and troubleshoot this really quick. Let's clear the screen and just go kubectl get pods, and I believe it's not liking it because I probably did not remove the old reference to the old configuration map. Yes, so the problem is it's referencing the old configuration map from my manifest files. The customization has this new name that I gave it, so let's go ahead and paste that in here. And now it should work. Let's go ahead and have a look at it. You can see that even though I gave it the name just my custom map, you can see that it's got like this random name in there, and this is matching the name up here that Kustomize gave the configuration map. So I think this should work now. Let's go ahead and apply it to our cluster. So we'll go cube control, apply -k, and now we can see that the deployment has been configured. The pod should be online now, I would think. So cube control, get pods. You can see it's up and running. Let's hop back here and open up our web browser, and then pull it up here, and you can see that we can now access it. And for those of you that don't know, this is the same simple Flask web application that I use for all my Kubernetes tutorials. So I use this one in my Kubernetes course as well as my Helm videos. But basically what this application allows you to do is to send it some environment variables to customize the header up here and the background color. And you can even change the image here if you would like. And then at the bottom it just tells you the name of the container. So it's a pretty cool web container application that you can use when you're working with Kubernetes. Anyways, now that you have a good understanding of what Kustomize can do, let's have a look at how we could use Kustomize to deploy different versions of our application. And when I say different versions, I mean being able to support different environments like dev, QA, and production. And the way we do this is with a simple folder structure called overlays. So rather than explain this, I think it's best if you just see it, as it's really simple to understand as long as you've been through it once. So let's hop back into VS Code, and we're going to create some new folders here. So I'm going to actually open up the integrated terminal here. And no, I don't want to update right now. But what I do want to do is make a new folder, one called base, and then a second one called overlays. And then within that overlays folder, we'll create one called dev, and then one called prod. And then let's take our files and then throw them into base. And then underneath the dev, let's create a new file called customization.yaml. And what we're going to do in this customization file is we're going to inherit the base one. So we'll say bases. So it's going to be like this. Base. And basically what this is going to do is inherit all the YAML files and customizations within this base folder, and then we can override specific values that we want to override for the dev environment. And then once we get to prod, we'll do the same for prod. So one thing I like to do for my environments is have them in a different namespace. So we will override the namespace. And instead of being the default namespace, I'm going to say dev. And another thing I like to do is change the amount of replicas for my deployment. So having a look at the base, you can see replicas is set to 1. So for our dev environment, I'm going to specify that the replica count is going to be 2. So to do this, I'm actually going to create a new file, and I'll just call it replicas.yaml, but you can call this whatever you want. And then within here, I want this to match with this deployment. So the best way to do it, I found, is to match it based on the name. So I'm actually just going to go here and then copy this, and then go back to the deployment. And then anything else that I want to override, I would just copy and paste as well. So I need the spec and then replicas. But if I wanted to change like the container name or the image, I could just copy down to here and copy that in. But let's just keep this simple and put this in like this. And instead of being a single replica, we'll set that to 2. And then back in our customization file, what we want to do is similar to what we did with our original customization file, which was specifying resources. And then we're just going to specify that YAML file that we created called replicas.yaml. And another thing that would be worth overriding for our development environment is the configuration properties. That's going to be a real common one that most of you need to do. So I'm going to go into our original customization, and I'm just going to steal this and then put this in here. And then for my config properties, I'm going to copy and paste that into my dev folder, and then I'll just change the values here. So I'll say, welcome to the dev environment. And now our web container in our dev environment should return this message. So let's go ahead and apply this, but before we do, I'm actually going to get rid of the one in the base. So I'll delete the one in the base, and then in the customization, I'm going to get rid of this config map generator because I only want it in my dev and production environments. Because I want the base folder to just be the scaffolding of my application, I don't actually want it to have any configuration elements in it. So this is pretty good. Let's go ahead and hop into the terminal. And we're going to have a look at our configuration. But before we do that, let's just do the tree command. And you can see what our folder structure looks like here. So you have the base, you have the 3 YAML files under base, and then we have our overlays, a folder for dev, one for prod, and we have the configuration and everything for dev. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this working for dev. So we'll just do kube control, Kustomize, and instead of doing the current working directory, we're going to do overlays, dev. And this should spit out the YAML configuration that Kustomize came up with. And you can see that the configuration map at the top says welcome to the dev environment. And the other thing we changed was the replica count. And you can see right there that the replicas is 2. So this looks good. Let's go ahead and apply this. Now before you do, what you'll want to make sure is that you have the namespaces for dev and prod created. So I have dev and prod created, but if you don't, just do the kube control create namespace dev and kube control create namespace prod, and that'll create those namespaces. Once you have the namespaces going, then you should be able to use the kube control apply. So we'll go kube control, apply our customization in the overlays / dev folder. And it looks like it created the 3 resources. So if we do a kube control get pods, or let's do kube control get all and set the namespace to dev, we can see that our pods are up and running, and there's 2 of them. So it looks like everything worked perfectly. And if I actually go and forward to it and specify the namespace to dev, I should be able to access the application. And there you go. It now says we are in the dev environment. Let's go ahead and replicate this for production, which should be pretty simple. Just hop into VS Code and copy. And then let's get rid of this prod folder. Copy and paste is much easier. Let's go prod. And then we'll change this to welcome to the prod environment. And then within the customization, let's change the namespace to be prod here. And then for replicas, we'll go with 5. Go ahead and go here. Apply the customization, but instead of saying dev, say prod. You can see the 3 resources were created. And then if we check our prod environment, you can see that 5 pods are up and running. And then go ahead and check that our container is returning the right message. And it is. It says, welcome to the prod environment. So that's it for customizing a Kubernetes application using Kustomize. I find using Kustomize is great for managing in-house applications, but if you're looking for a tool for deploying third-party applications like Prometheus, then you should check out my videos on Helm. I have a 3-part series that take you through the theory as well as how to deploy Helm and create your own Helm charts, so make sure to check that out. Otherwise, if you're looking for other DevOps related videos, make sure to check out the other videos on my channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.